On a cold Milwaukee morning in December of 1863, a steamship captain named Frederick Pabst stood on the frozen shore of Whitefish Bay, staring at his beached vessel. The storm had been merciless. His ship, the Huron, lay wounded against the rocks, and with it, Pabst's career as a sailor seemed to have run aground as well. He was 27 years old, newly married to Maria Best, and shaken to his core by how close he had come to death. As he walked away from that beach, he made a decision that would reshape not just his own life, but the entire landscape of American brewing. He would leave the treacherous waters of Lake Michigan behind and join his father-in-law in a business he knew absolutely nothing about, making beer. Frederick Pabst's journey to that fateful moment had begun 15 years earlier, in 1848, when his family fled political oppression in Thuringia, Germany. Young Frederick was only 12 years old when they arrived in America, settling first in Milwaukee before moving to Chicago. He was a restless boy with ambition burning in his chest, and by age 14 he had already found work on the steamships that crossed Lake Michigan. The life suited him. The endless horizon, the challenge of navigation, the authority that came with command. By 21, he had become the youngest captain ever to helm a ship on the Great Lakes. But it was love, not ambition, that brought him to Milwaukee's brewing industry. In 1862, he married Maria Best, the daughter of Philip Best, whose family had been brewing beer in Milwaukee since 1844. The Best family's story was itself one of immigration and perseverance. Jacob Best Sr. had arrived from Mettenheim, Germany, with dreams of continuing the winemaking tradition his family had practiced in the Old Country. But wine grapes did not thrive in Wisconsin's harsh climate. Instead, the Bests turned to what they knew second best, brewing. Jacob Best and his 4 sons started their brewery on a ridge overlooking the Milwaukee River, at the corner of what was then 9th and Chestnut Street. In their first year, they produced just 300 barrels of Best Select Lager. The operation was modest, housed in simple wooden structures, powered by the muscle of the Best brothers and their father's knowledge of fermentation. Milwaukee in those days was a city being shaped by German immigrants, men and women who brought with them a deep appreciation for the art of brewing. The Best family was competing with dozens of other small breweries, each fighting for their share of a growing market. The family's unity did not last long. In 1850, 2 of Jacob's sons, Charles and Lorenz, split off to start their own operation on the western edge of town. They called it the Plank Road Brewery. Tragedy struck when Lorenz died in a cholera epidemic, and Charles, devastated by the loss of his brother, could not continue alone. He sold the brewery to a newcomer named Frederick Miller. Thus, 2 of America's brewing giants, Pabst and Miller, both traced their roots back to the same German family. Back at the original Best Brewery, Jacob Sr. retired in 1853, leaving the business to his remaining sons. By 1859, Philip Best had become the sole proprietor, renaming it the Philip Best Brewing Company. The brewery was producing 2,500 barrels a year by then, making it the 4th largest in Milwaukee. But Philip's health was failing, and the business faced financial troubles that threatened to close its doors forever. This is where Frederick Pabst entered the story. After that December storm in 1863, he sold his interest in the steamship and joined his father-in-law's struggling brewery. He knew nothing about mashing, fermentation, or lagering. What he did understand, however, was navigation of a different sort, the navigation of markets, the reading of trends, the understanding of what people wanted and how to give it to them. 2 years later, in 1866, Pabst and his brother-in-law, Emil Schandine, purchased the brewery outright from Philip Best. Pabst became president and Schandine vice president. They were an effective team. Schandine understood the technical aspects of brewing, while Pabst brought a businessman's eye and a marketer's instinct. Together, they set about transforming a small regional brewery into something far greater. Their timing could not have been better. The 1860s and 70s saw an explosion in beer consumption across America. German immigration had brought not just brewers but beer drinkers to cities across the nation. The completion of the Transcontinental Railroad meant that brewers could ship their products farther than ever before, and new technologies, from artificial refrigeration to pasteurization, made it possible to produce beer on an industrial scale and keep it fresh during long journeys. Pabst and Schandine seized every opportunity. In 1869, they made a bold move, purchasing their largest local rival, the Melms Brewery, which sat on the southern bank of the Menominee River. This acquisition catapulted them into leadership of Milwaukee's brewing industry by 1870. 4 years later, the Philip Best Brewing Company had become the largest brewer in the entire United States, producing 114,000 barrels annually. The brewery itself began to transform from a collection of modest buildings into an industrial fortress. Walking through the complex in the 1870s and 80s was like entering a city within a city. Massive structures of cream-colored brick rose 5, 6, 7 stories into the Milwaukee sky. Each building served a specific purpose in the complex dance of beer production. The malt house, constructed in 1882, was reported to be the largest of its kind ever built, capable of processing 500,000 bushels of grain. Combined with other malting facilities, the Best Brewery could process over 1 million bushels, more than any other brewery in America. The architecture itself was a statement. Otto Strack and Charles Hoffman, the architects employed by Pabst, designed buildings that blended industrial functionality with whimsical Germanic style. The main office building, completed in 1880, featured battlements at the top like a medieval castle. In 1892, Strack added a round-corner tower that gave the whole structure the appearance of a fairy tale fortress rising from the industrial landscape. Windows were arched in the Italianate style. Terracotta ornaments depicted hop vines, beer steins, and the mythical figures associated with brewing. These were not mere factories. They were monuments to the dignity of labor and the pride of craftsmanship. Inside these buildings, innovation was constant. Pabst and Schandine had a philosophy: never be satisfied with good enough. In 1880, they installed artificial ice machines, allowing them to brew year-round rather than just in the cold months. In 1882, they became one of the first breweries in America to install incandescent electric lighting, transforming the dark, dangerous work of brewing into something that could continue safely around the clock. Their engineers developed specialized devices for every step of production: machines for washing barley, extracting hops, soaking bottles, making barrel staves, and rinsing kegs. The superintendent, J. Fred Thurer, and chemist Dr. Paul Fisher made a breakthrough in beer clarity. They developed a method to reintroduce carbon dioxide into the beer, producing a clearer product than the traditional creosoning process. They began using pure yeast cultures, ensuring consistency from batch to batch. Every innovation was about control, about creating a product so reliable that a customer in Boston would taste exactly the same beer as a customer in San Francisco. But Frederick Pabst understood something that many of his competitors missed. Great beer was only half the battle. The other half was making people know about it, want it, associate it with quality and prestige. In this arena, Pabst was a master. In 1876, Best Select Lager won a gold medal at the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia. 2 years later, it won again at the World's Fair in Paris. These were not small achievements. They were proclamations to the world that American beer could rival anything produced in Europe. Pabst displayed these medals prominently in advertisements in his brewery on his packaging. Then came the stroke of marketing genius that would define the brand forever. In 1882, after accumulating awards at competitions across the United States and Europe, Pabst began tying small blue silk ribbons around the neck of each bottle of Best Select. It was expensive. The brewery went through 1 million feet of ribbon each year. But the visual impact was undeniable. In saloons and beer gardens, the bottles stood out. Customers began asking bartenders not for Best Select, but for the blue ribbon beer. The name spread by word of mouth, a piece of branding so effective that Pabst did not even need to mandate it. The 1890 to 3 Worlds Columbian Exposition in Chicago became another platform for Pabst's showmanship. He commissioned architect Otto Strack to design a pavilion specifically for the event. The structure was extraordinary, built of tan terracotta and emblazoned with symbols of brewing, hop vines, beer steins, representations of the god and goddess of barley and hops. It gleamed with gold leaf and was crowned by a magnificent art glass dome. Inside stood a 13-square-foot model of the Pabst Brewing Company buildings, sitting atop an elaborate platform supported by carved gnomes. The model had been washed in gold and cost Pabst $100,000. Visitors marveled at its beauty. The actual prize situation at the exposition was more complicated than the legend suggests. The organizers had decided not to award traditional first, second, and third place prizes. Instead, any beer scoring above 80 points on their judging scale received the same medal and certificate. Both Pabst and Anheuser-Busch received these identical awards, though through some scoring confusion near the end, both companies believed they had won. Pabst, ever the marketer, immediately declared his beer the grand prize winner. He draped the entire Milwaukee brewery in blue ribbon and gave all his workers a day off to celebrate. The story of winning America's best in 1893 became part of the company mythology, printed on every can and bottle for generations to come, even though the truth was more ambiguous. After the exposition ended, Pabst had the entire pavilion dismantled, crated, shipped back to Milwaukee, and rebuilt as a private conservatory at his mansion. It was an extravagance, but it demonstrated his commitment to spectacle and grandeur. Frederick Pabst, while on holiday in Germany, the company officially changed its name from Philip Best Brewing Company to Pabst Brewing Company. Frederick Pabst now had complete control. By 1892, Pabst had become the largest brewer of lager in the world, with sales having increased 1,000% since 1872. This title would pass back and forth between Pabst, Anheuser-Busch, and Milwaukee rival Schlitz over the following years. But Pabst had established itself as one of the titans of American industry. If you're enjoying this journey through brewing history, please consider subscribing to our channel. We explore the forgotten stories of American industry, the empires built by immigrants and innovators, and the places where history still echoes in brick and mortar. The physical expansion of the brewery in the 1890s was staggering. More property was acquired in the surrounding neighborhood. Charles Hoffman designed most of the primary brewery buildings during this period. The bottling plant went up in 1891 on North 10th Street, a massive structure clad in cream brick with crenellated towers in the German Renaissance Revival style. The northern section was built in 1889, with additional sections completed by 1910 and 1911. Inside this building, bottles were washed, filled, corked, pasteurized, and labeled in a continuous industrial ballet. The mill house, also completed in 1891, stood at 1207 North 10th. The malt elevator, designed by Hoffman and built the same year, rose as a tall cream brick tower. After a fire in 1901, it was rebuilt 2 stories taller. The brew house, a 5-story Italianate building from around 1882, was expanded in 1892. Here, malt was ground, mashing and boiling occurred, and the fundamental transformation from grain to wort took place. These buildings were connected by a network of bridges, tunnels, and overhead passages. Workers could move materials from one building to another without ever stepping outside, crucial during Milwaukee's brutal winters. The famous neon Pabst sign, installed in the 1950s, hung on a steel frame bridge over West Juneau Avenue, connecting the malt house and the brew house, becoming one of the most iconic images of Milwaukee. But Pabst's empire extended far beyond Milwaukee. He understood that to dominate the national market, he needed a presence in every major city. Between 1879 and 1893, the company opened 40 offices around the country, 12 in Wisconsin alone. Pabst created what he called tide houses, taverns that were owned or leased by Pabst and served exclusively Pabst products. The red circle and hop leaf emblem appeared in saloons from coast to coast, border to border. By 1900, you could walk into a major city anywhere in America and find a Pabst establishment. This real estate empire was sound business strategy. Pabst leased these properties to operators who would display the Pabst logo proudly and pour only Pabst beer. The company controlled not just production but distribution and retail. It was vertical integration before that term became common in business schools. Pabst also invested heavily in Milwaukee itself. He built the Pabst Theater, a magnificent venue that brought culture to the city. He developed the Whitefish Bay Pleasure Resort, creating a destination for recreation. He established a traveling library that made German books available to immigrants in the area. His advertising and largesse helped create Milwaukee's favorable public image. The city became known not just as a place where beer was made, but as a place where brewers gave back to their communities. In 1891, Pabst commissioned architect Solon Spencer Behrman to design a skyscraper in downtown Milwaukee at the northwest corner of Water and Wisconsin Street. This location held historical significance. It was where Solomon Juneau's original cabin and trading post had stood, considered the starting point of the city itself. The Pabst building rose 14 stories, about 235 feet from sidewalk to the top of its copper tower. It was Milwaukee's first skyscraper, a symbol of the city's arrival in the modern age. The building was a masterpiece of Romanesque revival architecture, constructed of brown brick heavily ornamented with terracotta. Its entrance featured a magnificent curved granite arch. The central tower was topped with copper, displaying 4 large clock faces that could be seen across downtown. It was a declaration in stone and metal. Frederick Pabst had built an empire. Captain Pabst, as he was always known, despite having left the steamship business decades earlier, died on January 1st, 1904. He left the brewery to his sons, having transformed a struggling family business into the largest brewing operation in America. Under his leadership, the company had gone from producing thousands of barrels to producing millions. He had pioneered marketing techniques that would become standard across industries. He had built not just a brewery but an architectural landmark that defined Milwaukee's skyline. His sons continued the operation, navigating the challenges of the early 20th century. The beer industry became increasingly competitive. Pabst, Anheuser-Busch, and Schlitz traded positions as the nation's largest brewer. But then came a challenge that no amount of marketing savvy or industrial efficiency could overcome: prohibition. When the 18th Amendment took effect in 1920, the Pabst brothers were determined not to let the family business die. The massive fortress on Juneau Avenue had to find new purposes. Pabst produced near beer, a low-alcohol beverage that was legal under prohibition. They made malt extracts that homebrewers could theoretically use for baking but often used for illicit brewing. They produced syrups and even processed cheese under the Pabstet label. The great brewing kettles, which had once produced rivers of lager, now sat mostly idle. The Prohibition years were lean. Many of the tied houses closed. The workforce shrank, but the Pabst family held on, keeping the infrastructure intact, waiting for the day when Americans would legally drink beer again. When Prohibition ended in 1933, Pabst roared back to life. The company merged with Premier Malt Products, Company of Peoria, in 1932, becoming Premier Pabst Corporation. By 1934, they had opened a brewery in Peoria, Illinois. A year after repeal, Pabst's sales broke the 1 million barrel per year mark. By 1946, sales had tripled. After purchasing rival Blatz Brewing Company in 1958, sales nearly quadrupled by 1968. The post-war decades were good to Pabst. The company sponsored radio and television shows. Blue Ribbon Town featured Groucho Marx broadcasting from Milwaukee in the mid-1940s. The Blue Ribbon Bouts, boxing matches sponsored by Pabst, ran from 1948 to 1955. The famous "What'll you have?" slogan became ubiquitous. Pabst reached its peak in 1977, selling 18 million barrels. But the Milwaukee Fortress, the place where it all began, was showing its age. The buildings that had been state-of-the-art in the 1880s were now nearly a century old. Maintaining them was expensive. Competition from newer, more efficient facilities in other parts of the country intensified. Corporate ownership changed hands. The family control that had guided Pabst for generations gave way to professional managers and then to hostile takeovers. In 1985, Paul Kalmanovitz, a beer and real estate baron, purchased Pabst for $63 million in a hostile takeover. Kalmanovitz had a reputation. He was known for buying struggling breweries, cutting costs ruthlessly, and extracting maximum profit. When he started running Pabst into the ground, many people took exception. Milwaukee residents, who had watched Pabst contribute to their city for generations, were outraged. When Kalmanovitz began making noise about tearing down the historic brewery complex to make way for condominium development, a boycott movement started. Bars that had served Pabst for decades removed it from their taps. In 1996, the unthinkable happened. Pabst announced it would shift all production out of Milwaukee to a facility in La Crosse, Wisconsin ending the company's 152-year presence in the city where it was founded. The Milwaukee brew house was shuttered by the end of the year. Workers who had spent their entire careers in those buildings were laid off. The massive complex, which had once employed thousands and had been the beating heart of Milwaukee's industrial economy, fell silent. For years, the buildings stood empty. Windows broke, roofs leaked. Graffiti appeared on walls that had once been meticulously maintained. The Cream City brick weathered and darkened. There was serious talk of demolition. The Pabst building downtown, that monument to Captain Pabst's ambition, had already been demolished in 1981, replaced by a modern office building that tried and failed to capture the grandeur of the original. It seemed the brewery complex might meet the same fate, but Milwaukee had not forgotten. In 2001, a man named Jim Hartel, a local businessman who had grown up loving Milwaukee's brewing history, decided to act. When he learned that the brewery buildings might be torn down, he saw not just a travesty, but an opportunity. He approached the complex's owners with an offer to purchase one building, the 1880 corporate headquarters. They told him he could not buy just one building. If he wanted to buy anything, he had to buy the entire 27-building campus spanning 7 city blocks. It was an audacious challenge. Hartel was not a real estate developer with deep pockets, but he had passion, and he had a vision. He began searching for investors who shared his belief that the Pabst complex was worth saving. Through persistence and persuasion, he assembled the financing. For $50,000, he and his wife Karen purchased the headquarters building and several smaller structures, including an 1858 schoolhouse that had been incorporated into the brewery in 1890, and the 1934 gift shop and tasting room built after Prohibition ended. The Hartels transformed the derelict headquarters into best place at the historic Pabst Brewery, naming it after the family that had started it all. They created a tavern, cafe, venue, gift shop, and museum dedicated to Milwaukee beer history. The basement, which had once served as an infirmary for brewery workers, became a lower-level bar popular for wedding parties. They offered tours where visitors could stand in the Blue Ribbon Hall and hear the story of how a steamship captain became a brewing titan. Jim Hartel's purchase was the catalyst that saved the entire complex. It showed that there was value in preservation, that history could be adaptive reused rather than demolished. Other investors took notice. Joseph Zilber, a Milwaukee real estate developer and philanthropist, purchased most of the remaining buildings in 2006. His vision was to transform the complex into a sustainable neighborhood called the Brewery District. Building by building, the complex was reborn. The brew house, that 5-story Italianate structure from 1882, was converted into the Brewhouse Inn and Suites, a boutique hotel that opened in April 2013. The renovation preserved 6 massive copper brewing kettles, which now stand in the hotel's atrium. A dramatic stained glass window depicting King Gambrinus, the patron saint of beer, which Captain Pabst had commissioned in the 1890s to inspire his workers, graces the lobby. Guest rooms feature fixtures made from repurposed wood beams. A green roof helps the building meet modern sustainability standards while respecting its historic character. The bottling plant became off-campus student housing, opening in August 2016. The boiler house, which once produced steam power and heat for the entire brewery, was redeveloped into a 40,000 square foot office building with exposed Cream City brick and timber joists. Portions of the complex now house educational facilities for the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee Zilber School of Public Health, and Cardinal Stritch University College of Education and Leadership. Restaurants, offices, apartments, and retail spaces filled the buildings. The famous neon Pabst sign over Juneau Avenue was restored and relit. Preservation Park was created as a monument to the transformation, featuring walkways etched with the Brewery District's history and artifact boxes displaying pieces of the brewery's past. In 2017, Pabst Brewing Company itself returned, opening the Captain Pabst Pilot House, a tap room and microbrewery in a former church and training center on the original brewery site. For the first time in 21 years, beer was being brewed on the grounds where Jacob Best had started it all. Though the taproom closed in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the symbolism of Pabst's return, however brief, was powerful. Today, the Brewery District thrives as one of downtown Milwaukee's most vibrant neighborhoods. Young professionals live in loft apartments carved from former fermenting houses. Students study public health in buildings where malt was once ground. Tourists stay in a hotel that preserves brewing kettles as art installations. Office workers park their cars where barrels once rolled out to waiting trains. The fortress Frederick Pabst built has not been forgotten. It has been transformed, adapted to a new century while maintaining the dignity and craftsmanship of the old one. Walking through the Brewery District today, you can still sense the scale of what was built here. The massive buildings, the soaring ceilings, the ornate details carved into Cream City brick, all speak to an era when industrialists built monuments, not just factories. The story of Pabst's Milwaukee fortress is ultimately a story about transformation. A steamship captain transformed himself into a brewing magnate. A family brewery transformed into an industrial giant. Awards transformed into marketing gold. Buildings transformed from production facilities into living spaces. But some things remain constant. The ambition that drove Frederick Pabst to tie blue ribbons around bottles still drives people to preserve and reimagine his legacy. The pride that made German immigrants build beautiful factories still makes people fight to save them. The Pabst Brewing Company may have left Milwaukee in 1996, but the fortress remains. It stands as a reminder that great enterprises are built by people willing to take risks, to innovate, to see possibilities where others see only obstacles. Frederick Pabst saw opportunity in a beached steamship. Jim Hartel saw opportunity in a derelict building. Both understood that the greatest monuments are not built to last forever unchanged, but to inspire each generation to remake them in ways that honor the past while embracing the future. If this story has moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share it with anyone who appreciates the hidden histories that shape our cities and our lives. The fortress may have been forgotten for a time, but its story endures in every brick, every arch, every beam of the buildings that still stand on Juneau Avenue. Monuments to the beer king who once ruled from Milwaukee.